Welcome. I am Dr. Patrice Berry, licensed psychologist. And today we're going to be talking about a bit of a difficult topic. How do we help people? What do we do when Mother's Day is hard? Because Mother's Day isn't this magical day or this positive day for everyone. For some people, Mother's Day really does bring up some negative thoughts. It brings up some negative experiences. And so I just wanted to hold space for that today. You all can feel free to ask me general questions. I can't give you specific tips or advice, but I can just share in general what are some things that can kind of help as we navigate a day that may be difficult. I will also share that today, I got some bad news yesterday. Someone in my community, there were some major things that happened in their life that's going to just impact their family going forward. And that's really where the inspiration for this came from. And Complex Lit said that they needed this today, and then also Tart with the Heart. And so sometimes Mother's Day brings up feelings of sadness. For some people, it just, and so this is not a space where you have to pretend. So we can kind of be sad. It's okay to be sad. There are times that people don't want to stay there. And so there is a dialectical behavior therapy skill where I act opposite, where if I'm feeling sad, if I'm feeling really low, then sometimes I might do something that makes me laugh. I might do something that brings me some joy. But there is something to say for doing something that acknowledges that sadness, doing something that just helps me feel validated and seen, especially on a day. So I went to the grocery store today. I've decided to make some health changes that are going to help me medically moving forward. And I needed to go to the grocery store, and just everywhere you just saw flowers, you saw all of these things everywhere. And for some people, Mother's Day just brings up some pain. And I shared this on the community tab, and it says, thinking of you. And so, one of the hardest types of loss, and here on my channel, I've been talking about a few of the court cases. And just this past week, there were some mothers that because they did some bad things, and their families did get justice this week. But there are also mothers that have lost a child. We're also thinking about people who have lost their mother, that today they might even struggle celebrating themselves. They might struggle celebrating with other people. Some people have difficult relationships with their mother. Some people might have cut them off altogether and not be talking to them, and hearing and seeing all those other cards. So the day that brings that up for me is sometimes because there is no card for, like, there's no greeting card that says, you gave birth to me, thanks, but like that's kind of it. I do have a positive relationship with my mom, and so when I share some of this, it's not. But a lot of my clients, they don't have good relationships with their mothers. And on Thursday morning at 10 a.m., we're going to be recording the podcast live, me and my mom, and we're going to talk about healing mother and father wounds. I also want to acknowledge, and this isn't on this list, but there are people that are non-binary that celebrate more of a parent's day, and that, either Mother's Day or Father's Day. I think in some other countries they might have Parents' Day. Um, and so for some people, Mother's Day brings up issues around how they identify. And then there are mothers who have strained relationships with their children, that maybe have been cut off and don't speak to those children. There are people who have chosen not to be mothers, which is like, that is totally okay. And it's not okay for people to ask you, like, when are you going to have kids, or why don't you have kids, or like that's definitely not okay. And if people choose to, hey, I don't want to have a child, that is a valid choice. The same way I think people should be able to go into to choosing parenthood as well. Phoenix rising. Ah, wow. Dealing with three of the six, difficult day. Yes. And so we are holding space for that sadness, for that grief that I had a totally different plan. I had a totally different live scheduled for today that was going to be a lot more chipper, but life happened. And just to honor and be authentic to myself, I just wasn't in a space to really be chipper today. Today is a tough day because there are also children that have lost parents, and that can make Mother's Day hard as well. Um, and then there are individuals who struggle with fertility or those that are yearning to be a mother. And then I did want to share. So Nedra Tawwab. So she has a phenomenal book. It's called Set Boundaries, Find Peace. And that is the absolute best book on boundaries I have ever read. Excuse me. She also has a book called Drama Free Family. I haven't finished that one yet, but I definitely like the Set Boundaries, Find Peace. This was a post that she shared that sometimes Mother's Day can be a trigger because it can trigger being abandoned by a parent, any type of loss, difficulty conceiving, not having a healthy relationship with the mother, mother not being here anymore, being hurt by a mother, grieving the loss of a mother-like relationship, and then also just physically being distant. Some people might not be able to be close to their mother today. And I love that she balanced this post with ways to cope because I've seen this other post, the Thinking of You post. I have seen that one every single year. I really like the ways to cope. And so this is where we talk about that act opposite. So that's where you can plan some things that make you happy. Spend time with people who understand your feelings. So if there are people that are going to invalidate your feelings, invalidate you, nope, not today. Spend time with people that are going to see you and let you be sad, let you have all of your emotions. Be intentional about building relationships with mother-like figures if that's something that a person wants. Allow yourself to feel the difficult feelings without rushing them away or pushing them away. Because what happens is the feelings will come up when you don't expect it, or it'll just get triggered in situations where that's not clearly like Mother's Day or something. I think there are healthy ways to express those feelings that looks different for every person. Maybe start a new Mother's Day tradition. So one of my favorite Mother's Day traditions is that like I get to not be a mom for a day. I do have a partner. He is helpful. A lot of the parenting tasks they do come to me, and so that's where one time a month, like when like just like I just want to not be a mom today. Like you make his breakfast, you make his lunch, you put him down and let me truly enjoy this day. And then therapy. And I'm wearing my mental health awareness t-shirt because I think that mental health awareness is incredibly important. It takes strength to go to therapy. I recently said that with therapy, it is strange to sit across from a stranger and pour your heart out, but it can be incredibly rewarding. So I'm very open with my own journey with therapy that my first therapist was not the right fit. She just wasn't at all. And the shirt, I got it from Shein. And so they probably have them on Amazon, they have them all kinds of places. This one is from Shein. Um but just being able to just do you, be around people that let you authentically be yourself, I think that can really help. Lynn, I see you. Today's hard. Yes. Complex Lit, thank you for being a new member. I think you are member number 8. And my goal, once it gets to a certain point, will be to do member only behind the scenes and to provide some special members only things. And once a week, I do like a members only post. And it's cool. In YouTube, I can see comments from members that I haven't replied to. And so I can't reply to everything, but I try to definitely pay attention to those. Because it truly is. I really appreciate every ounce of support. But with Mother's Day being difficult, being hard, just knowing that you're not alone, that can often be helpful, that there are currently 12 other people on this stream taking time out of Sunday, May 14th, which just so happens to be Mother's Day, taking time out of their day to listen to this. If y'all have questions, please let me know. And so, having difficult relationships with a parent, grieving loss. So, for anybody that is grieving right now, grief is complex. And we sometimes, because you talk about the 5 stages of grief, and that's the Kubler-Ross model: denial, anger, bargaining, depression, acceptance. But what we don't talk about is those stages are not linear. That a person can be in anger and then kind of go back to denial, or might be in acceptance for a little bit, and that so like once you reach acceptance, your grief isn't done. So the way I view grief is that it is a lifelong process. It is something where a person has to learn to live and go about their day in a whole new way, a way that they weren't expecting. And they have to find a new normal and really accept the fact that things aren't going to go back to the way that they were, that things are different. And there is a great explanation that talks about a ball and a box. And right after grief, and I might look for that picture, but right after an grief, the ball is really big, and so and hitting the outside of the box is considered pain. And so right after something happens, there's a lot of pain, and that over time, typically the ball gets smaller and there are less triggers of that grief. But then there are anniversaries. There are certain times of the year. There are holidays that can sometimes make that ball of grief get bigger. Hello, Anne. And this is totally normal. And so if anybody ever did decide to seek out therapy, finding the right fit. So finding the right person. So, one of the things when I meet with a new client is that we talk about the fact that this is weird. This is strange. The therapy relationship, most people don't have a space where it's like it's one way, where it's just talking to the person and getting support back. So, and that can feel a little different at first, but I think with the right person, that can sometimes help. But the wrong person, and you typically know. So I would say within 1 to 3 sessions, you normally know if it's the right fit. For my first therapist, because their style is they were just late. They were just regularly 15 to 20 minutes late to things. And I would still get my full time, but like I'm very like I like my schedule. So if I schedule a 2 o'clock live, unless something major happens, please know I'm gonna be live at 2 p.m. My clients know that their time is their time. And if I'm a few minutes late, I'm like, my bad. I'd give my clients a grace period because hey, it's your time, but I really value that. And so finding a person that is the right fit. If anybody is looking for a therapist, I like looking at profiles online, seeing if they have any public social media, and how they show up on social media will not be how they show up in therapy, but sometimes they've talked about topics that are important to them, or sometimes you can kind of get a feel from someone based on those things. And so, anytime I'm looking for a new therapist, that's something that I always take a look at. And uh, Complex Lit had a nice. I found talking to a new therapist easier. Yes, and so typically the right therapist is going to show interest in what you're talking about. The right therapist is going to really show up. Peace out. Thank you, Lisa, for being here. Um, so complex lit, I agree. Like to me, being late, like you are not respecting my time. So that individual, she was not right for me. I was in grad school at the time and I did go, so I just didn't schedule another appointment. I let clients know that if there's something, if I'm not the right fit for them, that they can let me know and I will help them find somebody else. Like I get it. I might not be the right fit for every person. And so I think when a therapist has that open mentality, I find that to be more helpful versus if they're like, if they get offended by the fact that they're not right, or I don't know. So I think therapists should take feedback, where if a client is saying, I'd like some homework, or can we try this or that? I feel like this is the client's treatment and they should be able to speak into it. And so we talked a little bit about grief. I do want to see if I can find that ball in the box. I first heard about it on TikTok, of course. Um, but if I just type in "ball in the box grief," it it comes right up. And so let me see. All right, let me share my screen again. There we go. Uh-oh. Let's make it bigger. All right. And so at first, grief is really big, and there's this pain button, and it feels like it just hits it all the time. And then we try to adjust, might kind of withdraw. There are lots of things that kind of happen because of this pain. And then as time goes on, the ball starts to get smaller and it might hit the pain button a little less. And so And then we learn to live with the grief ball, where sometimes it won't hit the pain button and sometimes it will. And I really think self-compassion is one of the best things that people can really show for themselves, because sometimes people think, "Oh, like I should be over it by now, or I should do this, or I should do that." The way that I view grief, it's something that we work through. It's not something that we ever, like, get over, or, like, I just think it's really important. Um, and are do you oh, sorry, that was Linda. And do you have any military experience? Because that is like a military thing. So my military people are almost always, 15 minutes early at least, and, and so, yes, Linda shared a little bit. Difficult relationship with mom. Talked with her about it. Ooh, yeah. And so, Linda, I'm glad that you set that boundary, because to me, what I read in that, um, so sometimes when we set a boundary with somebody, they will sometimes cut us out of their life, and that is the person that needs that boundary the most. So the person that when I say, "I need you to speak to me kindly," and if because I say that, they then say, "I'm not gonna talk to you anymore," that is the person that absolutely needs that boundary the most. Tart with a heart. You appreciated that visual, and, ball in the box, like, if you type it into TikTok or probably YouTube Shorts, probably, there have been some really great explanations of it. Yes. Phoenix Healing, Phoenix Rising, shared that Phoenix Rising shared that therapy can definitely be difficult, especially if you were raised to suck it up or when your parents didn't vocalize their feelings. Um, because sometimes you're getting a different response than you might have received at home. You're actually feeling validated, and a person might not be used to it's okay for me to feel this way, and their inner critic might start saying, "Oh no, this isn't working. You're not healing fast enough." They might start to say some of those things. And I saw a really good quote recently about the fact that healing hurts. Healing is about opening those wounds and addressing them, and when I do that, it is going to hurt. But the goal is in therapy for it to not hurt so much that it's unbearable. And so that's where you're coming alongside with somebody to kind of work through those things. I'm a firm believer that there are alternate things like yoga and dance, music, moving the body, using music, the arts. There are other things that can be incredibly healing, and everybody's healing journey looks a little different. I have clients where journaling is incredibly helpful for them, and then other clients, if I recommended journaling, they probably never come back. And so everything is different for every person. And uh, I do think that making sure to validate our own emotions. So, validation isn't approval. So, when I say validate the emotion, that means acknowledging that it's there. So, today I'm feeling kind of sad. And at the same time, I'm also kind of there's a little happiness. I'm excited to be here. And then also, I just think that being able to just share and have safe spaces where you can be you, that can just be incredibly helpful. And if somebody gifted a membership, that is awesome. Thank you for doing that. I don't even know how that works. I am newer to some of these things. I am learning as I go. I really truly appreciate sharing with the community. I have a live scheduled for Tuesday, and the plan right now is to talk about postpartum mental health. So specifically talking about Andrea Yates and Lindsay Clancy, a more recent story from up in Massachusetts. And so I'll be doing that on Tuesday. We'll be talking about healing mother and father wounds on Thursday. And then I believe I'm planning to go live again on Saturday. And so thank y'all for the support as always. Um, and I like it because when we talk about empathy, because I saw in the comments people talking about being very empathetic, and there's a way for me to have emotional boundaries with my empathy where I know where my emotion ends and the other person's emotions begin. Because sometimes we grew up in families, we grew up in situations where, as a child, the child felt responsible for the adult's emotions. The child felt like, I have to do right. I have to say the right things so that I don't make this parent mad, so that they're happy with me, so that they accept me, so that they love me. I have to be very aware of their emotions. And that can create what we call an enmeshed, where like there's no boundary, there's no differentiating, there's no difference between the parent and the child. Like it's just melded into one, where the child could be happy and the parent comes home sad, and now the child is like overwhelmed with sadness because they've taken on the adult's emotion. And as a parent, I just want to be mindful of that it's okay. So it's healthy that if my parent comes home upset, I might feel for them. I might, but it doesn't have to ruin my day. Um, and now if it triggered something in me because maybe the person is dealing with some grief and it brought up some things in me, that would be different than it just completely ruining my day. So I love that y'all are connecting in the chat, especially with talking about military parents. So I grew up Air Force. I was raised by a single mom. And so I was raised living with my mom. My dad was active duty military, but I was never stationed with him. And so I kind of grew up like on military bases, but not, it was different. It was confusing. But definitely knowing that sometimes when we get triggered, when things come up that are unexpected, when things come up that are difficult or painful, we have to be aware of the different stress responses. Air Force, yay, Air Force number one. I have a family member that's in the Air Force. I get distracted by the comments just so we're all fully aware of that. I'm gonna look up the stress response picture that I really like. Stress, because we always talk about fight and flight. We don't always talk about fawn. And fawn is people pleasing. And I, there we go. Gonna share my screen again. There we go. All right. Oh, need to make it bigger. Not now. Share this tab. All right. So there can be different trauma responses, and there is a fight trauma response or stress response is sometimes what I call it, where a person is a workaholic, an overthinker. That's where anxiety and panic, difficulty sitting still, being a perfectionist. Sorry, flight. I said fight, but those words are flight. So I'll say that again. For flight, because that's avoiding. Being a workaholic, overthinker, anxiety, panic, difficulty sitting still, being a perfectionist. Then fight is anger outbursts, controlling, being a bully, narcissistic tendencies, explosive behavior. That's more of a fight trauma response. Freeze, difficulty making decisions, feeling stuck, disassociating or checking out. I have a whole video just on the different types of dissociation and some tips, like grounding techniques for dissociation, isolating and numbing. And then fawn. So fawn is the people pleasing, lack of identity, no boundaries, being overwhelmed. And I do think we are born to be interdependent, but codependent means I can't, like, sets up an unhealthy dynamic within a relationship where it's no longer my choice. Like, I have to have this person, or I can't function, or they need me in order to stay sober or something. And so a lot of the research and conversations on codependence comes out of substance work. But yes. Um, and often all of those are stress responses. Everybody goes into those at a time or two. And so I will acknowledge I am a big flight. So I'm a big avoider, and I am a big people pleaser. So that's where I talk about being a, what's it called? Being a former people pleaser. That's something that I have to actively work on, because my initial response might be, let me just do what the person wants. So if somebody asks me a question, if somebody's like, "Hey, can you meet me on Friday?" I might say, "Let me get back to you." Because if my first response is like, "I don't want to go, but I don't know if I can tell them no." Sometimes just adding some time, just like, let me think about it. And it's not that I'm actually thinking about it. I'm building up. How am I going to decline this? And I've also started to not apologize for things that I'm not sorry for. And what I mean by that is I don't say, "I'm sorry for running late." I don't say, "I'm sorry for," I don't know. So I'm the type of person where if somebody bumped into me in the grocery store, I would sometimes say, "I'm sorry." Like, "Wait a minute, you bumped into me." Like, and so, like, "I'm sorry for being in the way." No, I get to exist. I get to take up space. I get to be here, and I don't have to apologize for it. And that has been like something that I've had to work on personally. And it's something that when I see it in clients, it's something that we kind of address, but we address it in safe ways. Because for some people, so all of those stress responses, they can be survival skills. Because maybe in the midst of my pain, if I didn't have those stress responses, my situation might have been a lot worse. And so making sure my people pleasing as a child, that kept me out of trouble. And it was okay at the time, but the problem was when I was now an independent adult and had the right to say no, had the right to set boundaries, that sometimes that didn't feel okay. And for some people I work with, it might not even feel safe. And so knowing that, okay, I can start to work on those things in small ways. For me, what I did is if my food was made wrong, because I used to never send anything back. Like I never ever would send anything back. But what I started to do is, okay, if I and this happened to me one time at Olive Garden, I ordered like a shrimp meal and they brought me chicken, but I ordered shrimp. And so I was like, "Excuse me, I think I ordered the shrimp." And cuz my thing is I want to be polite. Like I'm not going to get rude with a person. I'm not going to do like I think there's a mistake with my order. And the person was like, "I'm so sorry." Like, "Yes, I'm gonna," and the person fixed it. Oh, yes, you did say shrimp, and they were able to make sure and have it handled. And so sometimes you're not able to set those maybe all the boundaries you want at first with maybe the people that really really need them. If that's really hard, sometimes people start in more neutral situations where as a customer, I'm able to say, "Hey, this isn't right." And I'm able to kind of do those things. If y'all have questions, please let me know. Yes, and so the panorama, because I don't know if I can say this word. I don't want any limitations, but it did bring out a lot of fight, flight, freeze, people please, a lot of stress response. And I feel like people are still there because I've been very concerned with a lot of the just people being in the wrong place, wrong time, and there being these pew pew situations where a kid answered the wrong door and and thank goodness that kid survived, or like a cheerleader, she walked up to the wrong car. That people are on such, they're so hyper vigilant. So vigilance is good. Vigilance is me being aware of my surroundings. Hyper vigilance is, and trauma can put people in a place of hypervigilance, and there are ways to find felt safety. So y'all will hear me talk about felt safety so much. I work with individuals in foster care, individuals that have been adopted, and felt safety is really important within those populations. Excuse me, but it's also important for everyone. And I was at a seminar. Dr. Eric Gentry, he has a YouTube here on burnout and compassion fatigue, and he goes through his whole step. So I attended one of his seminars live, and he said, "Who in the room feels 100% safe?" And I didn't even raise my hand. I was like, 100% safe. I'm like, maybe I'm like 80, 75, maybe 90, but not 100%. I don't feel 100% safe. And he was just like, in this moment, who feels 100% safe? And there was one guy that raised his hand, and I promise you that person had probably taken the seminar before and knew that was the correct answer. And what he talked about was the fact that our brains are constantly assessing for threat and assessing for danger, which is very adaptive if there is a threat. But if there's not, we can sometimes miss moments of safety and felt safety being in this moment, knowing, okay, so y'all know I have a 5-year-old and my door is locked. I'm in my office. His father's downstairs. Like I said, it's Mother's Day. It is my day off. And so I am safe in my office. But if there was a threat here, I would get safe. And that was his whole thing, was in moments where I am safe to be able to feel and enjoy it. And often we use breathing, we use body, just feeling where tension is and releasing that tension and just kind of moving through there. Huh. So, and I'm not big on John Wayne, so I don't know what I don't I'm sometimes I'm bad with names too. But you said that he never apologized. Um now I will apologize. So like if I wasn't very patient with my child, which happens, I will go back and say, "Mommy didn't say that as, the way I should have, I'm sorry." So I will definitely apologize to my child. I just don't apologize in situations that don't require an apology. So, um if you all have questions, let me know. If there are any parents, if there are any people watching, the importance of self care, because it's Mental Health Awareness Month, and we have to put our mask on first. And often, especially mothers, they try to take care of everybody else and then leave time for themselves at the end. And that might not be enough. And what I've seen in my practice is when the parents aren't okay, the kids aren't okay. And so often getting the parents to a better space, anytime I'm working with a child or teen that has body image issues, I normally have a parent, at least one, with body issues. When I'm working with a very anxious child, I often have one or both parents that are very anxious. And I say this from like a place of understanding because I have anxiety. And so I have to actively practice leaning into uncertainty because anxiety is about certainty and control. I have a whole video on anxiety, practical tips for anxiety management from the book Anxiety Audit by Lynn Lyons. That book has changed my approach. She also has a book, Anxious Kids, Anxious Parents, her and Reed Wilson. And what that talks about is that often we accommodate anxiety in a way where it's like, going here makes me anxious, so I'm just not going to go there anymore. But that's my anxiety speaking. And if I really want to go to that place, there are ways that I can build in safety. There are ways that I can work up to doing the things that maybe trigger some of that. And so, um, all right. Um, just leaning into the fact that Mother's Day can be tough. And for anyone else, if Mother's Day is tough, if there are some difficult moments, if there are some difficult things, somebody asked that I talk about resilience. And with the Letitia Stout trial, because her trauma became such a big thing in it, and mental health became such a big thing, and I love that the judge talked about the fact that lots of people have experienced trauma and they don't become aggressive. They don't engage in these types of things. And through the things, so I never say that like, because I wish bad things didn't happen. Like that would make my life so much easier. Like my job, like I'd probably I'd probably be a dance teacher if bad things didn't happen because there you wouldn't really need as many psychologists. Um, but since things do happen, having safe spaces where people can address and work on those things and build resilience. So resilience isn't a state. Resilience, no, it's not a trait that people have or don't have. Resilience is a state. And so there are things that I can do. Exactly. You wouldn't need as many lawyers. Um, uh Resilience is something that can be built. The things that help resilience is having community, having a safe community. And community might be two or three people because for a lot of people that I work with, the more people that they're around, the less safe they feel, the less authentic they can be. And so having that safe group where I can feel seen, heard, and loved. So we all want to be seen, heard, and loved. And having safe spaces where you can have that, game changer. And every so often, y'all know, I'll talk about turning crisis into clarity. It's an Audible ebook version, and then also the paperback on Amazon. But the first half of the book just talks about surviving because if somebody's in a difficult space or if they're coming out of a difficult time, we're just going to survive. And then once we have that under our belt, we're going to try to thrive. We're going to try to be resilient, where we're going to try to make meaning out of the pain, which is an individual process that looks different for every person. I talk about the fact that I became a therapist because I had a bad experience with a school counselor, and that was a way that my pain was able to kind of have some meaning. I do think with Harley Hunt, her love of nursing and like her wanting to be a nurse and help others, I think a part of that comes out of some pain. And then that's where we talk about the fact that helpers need help too. That even when I find meaning, maybe I'm volunteering, I set up a nonprofit, I find a way to appropriately express that, I still have to make sure that I'm taking care of me, because sometimes it can be a bit of a distraction. And so making sure that you're taking care of you, that is so important. Yes. And so someone mentioned the fact that sometimes there would be some jealousy that would come up when they would see other people, mothers and daughters shopping together, or just because they didn't get to experience that. And um, Holding on to what people do experience, and then if I can give that experience to myself in any type of safe way, it's not the same. I'm not even gonna it is not the same. But accepting and acknowledging that my parent couldn't meet my need and that wasn't my fault. I didn't do anything wrong. They didn't have the resources and tools. And now I get to be responsible for my healing. I get to be responsible for moving forward. And so another resource that I love is Adult Children of Emotionally Immature Parents. I plan to do an entire video on that book. I have so many, my content list just keeps getting longer and longer. That is definitely on the list. If y'all ever want me to go into it more, please let me know, because I think I have some notes typed up. Complex lit. So something that you didn't get. I love the fact that you are now able to give that to your daughters. And there can be a bit of a like seeing that through their eyes. I'm a believer in the whole inner child thing, and my inner child comes out when I'm doing art with my son, or when I go to his events at school. I can't make it to every event. They had like two concerts back to back. I made it to his kindergarten concert, but then they had another one that was like, I think kindergarten through second grade, another like Wednesday at 3. I couldn't make it to the second one. And reparenting, yes. I love this comment. Remothering myself. Such a beautiful experience. And you intend to do it for the rest of your life. Yes. That I can give what I didn't get. I don't have to then live life unfulfilled or with that unmet need, that I can give that to myself. And I like it when people do it from the words, because often what happened is somebody was very critical of the child. They withheld emotions, they withheld praise. There might have been like emotional or verbal, those words that this app doesn't like. And so being able to be gentle with myself, being able to let myself make mistakes, letting myself and so that's something that I give to my child that I didn't get I didn't get it to the extent that I'm giving him, where it's like everybody makes mistakes. If something happens, let me know. And just being able to give that to yourself, I think is so important. And I think that can really just because it can just help touch that place that nobody else can see, but that is definitely there. Do y'all have any questions for me? It's okay if you don't have questions, because I can't give you individual advice, but I can talk in general. And we will be talking about healing mother and father wounds on Thursday, because those wounds run deep and they often influence our ideas of other people. So at home, that's how we learn how we should be treated, how relationships should work. But if home wasn't safe, if home was chaotic or unstable, or if there were things happening at home that can sometimes distort, and that can kind of change as how things move forward. So, how do you mother yourself? Yes. How do you mother yourself? And I would love it, Tart with a Heart, if you would like to share things that you do to mother yourself, you can feel free. You do not have to. That's totally up to you. So some ways that I've encouraged clients to remother themselves is sometimes they need words of affirmation, and so sometimes they write a letter to their younger self of what they needed to hear. Be careful, like if there is a lot of pain with that, sometimes you do that in therapy or you do that with like a licensed person, but there are lots of letter to my inner self, letter to my child, letter to me as the adult me writing to the younger me, because maybe the younger me needs to hear it wasn't your fault. You didn't do anything wrong. It's okay to make mistakes. Whatever those things that you really needed to hear when you were younger, being able to give that to yourself, that can really, really help. Do a community post for Thursday so I don't forget. I'll do my best. So I will share it maybe once we record it, because it's going to be, excuse me. So we record the podcast at 10 a.m. on Thursdays, and I think it's already scheduled. So Tracy, you can go to the live page and I think you can do notify me, because that one is already scheduled, and so you should be able to let this app notify you. So hopefully that'll work. One of the biggest things a friend said to me was, "You were a child. Remember that you are not the parent when that happens." I love that. I really, really love that. And sometimes our inner critic is actually the voice of an unsafe parent. And so learning to get that person out of your head, which, because it's automatically, because if that's how I've lived for the last 40 years, it's not going to be gone in a week or 2 weeks or a month. Like it's going to take time. And that's where people find, some people do journaling, some people do the letter to themselves and they reread it when they're having a difficult moment. And then sometimes what people do is they might write a letter to that parent. Do not send it. Do not send it, because it's not for them. This is solely for you. So writing a letter to that parent to let them know how their behavior impacted me, that sometimes that can be helpful. No worries, Lisa. And because we have about 10 more minutes. Yes, yes. So, and once again, the letter, because Catnap talked about the fact of liking that idea. The letter to the parent, the reason why I say it's not for them is because it's very cathartic to just get that out. And then if they have a negative response to it, that can sometimes undo the work that you just did. And to me, that part of the work, it really isn't for them. Something that I like that Nedra Tawwab talks about is, if I do have some people in my life that when I'm around them, I don't feel good about myself. When I'm around them, I feel really uncomfortable. And when those things come up, maybe I limit how much time I spend around those people. Maybe I don't go to their house. Maybe we meet at a restaurant. Like finding ways to set boundaries, I think that can be helpful. Yay! All right. So, book recommendations. Can you think of a book that could help an empathetic mom navigate relationship with daughter? Yes, need that. Yes. And so the book, the boundary book that I like, so I'm going to give you two different choices. Um, Let me just pull them up. I'm going to share my screen so you can see where I am going. Present, share screen. All right. So I have a list of self-help books. So right here we have self-help. And in this list, there are just Anxious attachment recovery, the Set Boundaries, Find Peace. That is a phenomenal book. We have the Adult Children of Emotionally Immature Parents. Um, and then because I'm trying to see if I have because there's a really popular book on that topic, and I want to see if I have it on the list already. Because if I don't have it there, I can put it on there towards the top. There's a lot of books. I like books a lot. So Struggle Care, Casey Davis is a TikToker that I adore. She talks about taking the morality out of cleaning, morality, like the good or bad, out of cleaning, and like how to keep house when you're depressed or have ADHD. Like I like her book. So many books. I told y'all. Okay. So I think I need to add because the popular book is I have to remember. Um, Stop Walking on Eggshells. This is an older book, and it was specifically written for individuals that have for parents of children or family members that have borderline personality disorder, and so they're Stop Walking on Eggshells for parents. Help your child of any age. And so what you can do is um, you can look at they don't have. I like it. Look inside. There we go. I like to look at the table of contents to see if I like what it has. But Stop Walking on Eggshells, that is a really, really good book. That's not specifically for narcissism. So let me see if there's something for narcissism. Let's see. Let's see. Yep. I don't think there are as many resources for that. So I would maybe see if the either Set Boundaries, Find Peace or the Stop Walking on Eggshells. I would see if either one of those. Ah, perfect. Yeah, because that's what living with somebody that does have borderline personality disorder, it feels as though you are walking on eggshells. And the hard part about that is you're gonna have to shift things so that they don't always get their way, and they're gonna get mad about that. And so you have to have some consequence. So like they're if my child is living with me and my biggest fear is and my child is like 20 or 21, like they're an adult, and I'm trying to set boundaries with them. They are being physically aggressive. They are having all of these different issues. It's not safe for me. Sometimes I might have to tolerate them. Maybe they choose, I don't want to be here, and they might go live somewhere, and I don't really agree with that. Or they might go to a shelter, and that person is going to blame you. So when you set the boundary, because often individuals that do have that personality dysfunction, it's really hard for them to see what they're doing. The other person is always the victim. And the Letitia Stout trial is like the perfect example of that she was never wrong. Like it was never her fault, that she was always in the midst of everything. She was trying to be the victim. And that's where in treatment, somebody that wants to work on that, the goal is them going from victim to survivor. That in survivor, there's actually some power. There's some power in taking responsibility for what I do and for accepting consequences or all of those things. But if somebody stays in the dysfunction, that is going to be difficult. And so that link should be right in my Amazon. I often put it in my in the description as well. The link to those self-help books. All right. And have to have boundaries for how you allow yourself to be treated. And so there's a difference between a boundary and a request. So a boundary is, if you keep yelling at me, I'm going to hang up. Because a boundary is what I'm willing to do. It's not about the other person. Because a request is, stop yelling at me. Because then I don't have any power. But if I say, if you keep yelling, I'm going to hang up. They keep yelling, I love you. I'll talk to you tomorrow. I don't know. And then click. And then I put the phone in airplane mode. I don't know. So boundaries are about what I'm willing to do and what I'm not willing to do. And they're about my behavior. Now, if somebody violates my that's a whole other, but what I'm talking about is somebody shows up to my house unannounced. I now have the choice if I let them in or not. So it's my boundary that you have to call before you, like, don't just show up to my house. Like, I'm not no, I'm not. I have on Grinch pants. Like, I love I think I got them from, forget if it was Amazon or I don't know where I got them from, but these are the most comfortable pants. If I'm working from home, I'm most likely, like, I love, love, love these Grinch pants. And when I don't have the Grinch pants on, I have on a zip up onesie. Like, don't just show up to my house. No. And so setting boundaries, but it can feel scary. And I have to address whatever that big fear is. And that's going to be different for each person. For people that I've worked with, they were afraid that their child, like, wasn't going to be safe, or they were going to go back to a negative peer group, or I don't know, like, there was this fear. And so I have to navigate, how do I set a boundary with this person and be okay with whatever choice they make once I set this boundary. And so just did that with my son last week. He was getting nasty and I said, "Talk to you later. Bye." And I hung up. Exactly. And that is, and he'll probably be mad, because as you first start, because this person is used to you having no boundaries. Okay. And then Phoenix Rising, Dr. Berry, would you agree that it is her narcissism that allows her to say things like, my BPD is bad today, as a justification for being nasty? It could also be um, so that helps explain, it does not excuse. It's not a justification. It just helps me understand. And so dialectical behavior therapy is, and I don't know if some people don't like DBT. There are other types of treatment, time limited, TLDP. I forgot what the DMP stand for, but there are different types of therapies that can be helpful, but the person doing their work, so they have to do their work. And if they're not being honest with their therapist, if they'll allow, the parent to, if we need to do a family session to talk about setting some of these boundaries, um, some therapists will allow that. I allow that with adult children, as long as the adult child agrees to it. And so, um, once again, so the diagnosis helps me understand, but it does not excuse. There's a big difference. So, because then if I'm feeling like my BPD is bad today, then I need to have, okay, so I'm just going to stay in my room more today, or we're going to have a special code for each other that says, like, not banana, maybe it's like apples. I don't know. Like, we're going to have a special code that just says, hey, I'm in a mood today. I don't need, like, I need to work, to use my skills and work on myself today. But often when people are struggling with some of their treatment, sometimes they might not take responsibility for those parts. I work with a lot of people that do have BPD traits, or that do have the full diagnosis. And the ones that are in treatment that are actively working towards it, um, they have their ups and their downs, but we're able to talk about them accepting responsibility. We're able, and they get less mad at me because I'm the therapist. So just so y'all know, a parent saying something and a therapist saying the same thing, they're gonna get more mad at the parent because sometimes there's this belief that like the parent is wrong or the parent doesn't know what they're talking about, or I don't know. And so that's where I know from my own child, eventually, I know at some point, we'll get to a place where we're stuck with him, and not stuck. What I'm saying is, he might have some behaviors that I don't have the skills and tools. And I'm licensed, like I'm a child and family, but I'm not my child's therapist. I'm his mom, so he might need a therapist. So he might need somebody else speaking into him, and I'm gonna help him find the right person. She won't do any therapy and anything to work on ourselves. Yeah. Uh, and so, with that particular diagnosis, borderline personality disorder, there can be a lot of I love you, I hate you. Their moods really, an individual's moods depend on the status of their relationships, really sensitive to perceived rejection, and sometimes can self sabotage a lot. Often, individuals they struggle with things being peaceful. Like when things get peaceful, they get stressed because they're used to kind of chaos, drama, things kind of always going. And so, wishing all the best on that journey. It is hard, it is difficult. Um, and so, I appreciate you all being here. The engagement, as always, amazing. I love that Lynn shared the only way I learned how to set up and practice boundaries is when somebody else kind of helps with that process. And so for me, I started setting boundaries, like I said, with just waiters or just I started setting boundaries in other settings that were safe. And the last person that I set boundaries with is maybe the one that's going to be hard, the one that probably needs all those boundaries the most, because I need to have that experience of, so like, if Lynn, if you said, "Hey, Dr. Barry, I have to go. Have a good day," I'd be like, "All right." Like, but with an unhealthy person, if you say, "Hey, I have to go," they're like, "Why?" Like, I don't know. Like, they might not let you go, or they're gonna blame and shame you. Like, how dare you? I don't know. Like, so when you set a boundary with a healthy person, it goes fine because like boundaries are just me saying what's okay and not okay for me. And with a healthy person, that doesn't bring up any like insecure, like they just say okay. Like it doesn't, it's not this big, it's not a big thing. But the people that need it the most are going to have negative reactions most of the time. It's going to be an adjustment because they're used to you not having boundaries. That's one of my favorite quotes. The people that need your boundaries the most are the ones that have benefited from you not having any. I'll say that again. The people that need your boundaries the most are the ones who have benefited from you not having any. So let's say I need to set boundaries around my money, around my time, around my social calendar or something. The people that need it, it is going to be hard to set that boundary with them. But because like they're used to me just coming to me saying, "Hey, can I have $100?" And I'm just like giving them money because I don't know how to tell them no. Because if I ask y'all, "Hey, give me money," like you'd be like, "No, like, don't." That's weird. Like, don't. No, I wouldn't do that. Like, this is a free platform. Like, y'all don't have to do that. And so, I really, really appreciate you all. This has been, y'all have brought a little bit of light to a tough day. And I hope that this live has done the same for you all. And I hope you enjoy the rest of your day.